Hello, loves. My name is Maya, and welcome back to my canvas. I hope you all had a blessed week, and today I'm going to show you how I made this cute and simple intro animation that I did for my channel. So sit back, grab a snack or some art supplies, and draw with me. First, I wanted to add an intro to my art channel. I felt like it was time to give my channel a little bit of an upgrade, and I wanted to do it myself. And now I'm going to show you my process on how I made this in clipstudiopaint. Step 1, the idea. First and foremost, we need an idea. And my idea for my channel was to draw my drawing tablet in the clouds. I also knew I wanted a chibi version of my art Sona, and I always love to include my doggo Prompto always somewhere in my artworks, so he had to be in there too. I also wanted to add a simple loading bar, so I plan to keep a transparent opening in the tablet itself. My goal here was to make a Maya's Canvas loading screen, so I definitely wanted to implement a loading bar. Step 2, the sketch. Now it was time to sketch, and be sure to take your time on this part. When I was sketching, I was also planning where I wanted my art to move in the animation. So I took some time to make sure that I had all the elements that I wanted to add. I didn't want my intro to be too clustered, so I knew that my two main moving points was going to be my art Sona and then my puppy boy doggo Prompto. I also knew that I wanted to have some clouds in the background move as well. And later on, I'll show you how I utilized Clip Studio Paint patterns to do that as well. Step 3, rendering. Once I got the sketch down, I went to work on the line art and coloring. And since my favorite color is purple, I wanted my intro to be centered around purple colors. So I put some pinks in there, some light tans, and a couple of like purpley-ish blues to kind of contrast with the color purple. And once I got the base colors down, I went in and rendered everything in my favorite painterly style. Now, since this is a simple animation with simple movement, make sure you separate what you want to move. So for example, if you want the head to move separately from the body, make sure it's rendered on its own separate layer, detached, from the rest of the body. For my design, I wanted everything to be connected, so except for the loading bar, that was also put in a separate layer, and I will show you how I utilize layers for that animation movement as well. Step 4, animation setup in Clip Studio Paint. Now, here's a disclaimer. The setup I'm showing is how I usually set up my layers for animating in Clip Studio Paint. There are many different ways to set up your animation space in Clip Studio Paint. For this video, I'm purposely just showing you how I do mine. Every artist works differently, so feel free to move tabs around in the way that works best for you. Now, on to the simple animation tutorial, and let's flip from our art view to the Clip Studio Paint view. All right, everyone, welcome to my Clip Studio Paint setup. And before we get started, I'll show you the finished product from start to finish. So here's that. All right, and now I'm going to show you how I set up my canvas space for this simple animation. So my setup was, if you go to File and hit New, then you'll click on the animation button for an animation file, and we'll call this test. And for my width and height, all I did was I took the 1920 by 1080 size and I just doubled them. So the 1920 and the 1080. And then I also used the resolution 600. I doubled these pixels so that when the final animation comes out, that majority of the detail comes out and it has a really clean finish. Now, for the timeline, which is found over here, I did 362 frames, which should be about 12 seconds. And then for my frame rate, I don't think it's a big difference if you did 30, but I did 24. I'm less worried about how many frames per second with this because we are really going to be utilizing keyframes for this simple animation. So it's not completely necessary to worry too much about what your frame rate here is, but for mine personally, I just did a frame rate of 24. And once that's all set up, you'll hit OK. And then this will be your new animation setup. Now you can animate within the same animation folder where you drew everything and separate it that way. But because I have a lot of things going on in this section over here, it will be easier for you to see and understand what I did on a clean canvas. So this is why we have a fresh new canvas, so we can clearly see how I layered everything and how I went about putting my intro together. So the first thing I focused on were the elements that do not move. And first and foremost, I colored the background to match around the color palette that I wanted my animation to be. So it was between like this purplish pink, and that's set there. And then next was adding a gradient. So all you'll have to do for that is go over here, add a new layer, and I went over to the gradient section, and then I combined an array of purple and pinks and tans, and all I did was add one to the background. Now you can do this in diagonal way, you can do it either way diagonal. You can have the darks coming down from the top or the dark at the bottom with light at the top. And since I was going for a sunset look, I went more for this dark at the bottom, and it got lighter towards the top angle here. So next was adding my elements that I know I did not want to move. And for that, it was my tablet. So I put my tablet in its own folder and combined everything, the tablet and the clouds. And what I did so that my loading bar could show was I made a transparent box or a transparent opening in my tablet so that the loading bar could show underneath the tablet. So if you have anything like that, be sure to leave a space where you don't fill in with color, so that can work out best in your animation. So we'll turn the gradient back on, and because I'm going to have clouds moving in the background as well, I wanted to color in this part, but not by actually coloring in, just adding a box in the background. And then later on, I'll add my loading bar, animate my loading bar on top of the box, but yet underneath the tablet, if that makes sense. So these are all the elements that I have that are not going to move. So this has nothing to do with being put in any animation folder. Once I have all that situated and where I want to be, I'm going to go over to this section here and I'm going to lock all of these non-moving layers, because the moment I add my animation folder and start moving around keyframes, you're going to have to use the operation tool, and that operation tool, it will click on whatever you touch, and that can get annoying when you're trying to click on the thing that you're trying to move and not the thing you're trying to move. So Now we're going to go down here into the timeline, and we are going to add a new animation folder. And we're going to move that folder up to the top over here. Perfect. And we are going to add a new animation cell into this folder. Now, because we are not animating frame by frame, we are going to need to copy and paste our renders into these folders. And for some reason, I don't know the in and outs about clipstudiopaint of why you can't do that, or at least I just forgot. But for this stance, it won't let you just copy and paste your assets into an animation folder. So to fix that, you'll go over to the animation cell, you'll right click, and you'll click on Create Folder and Insert Layer. Now, when you do this, you'll be able to copy and paste your art assets into the folder and move it however you see fit. So I went over and grabbed my avatar asset, and we are going to copy and paste her into this animation folder. And then all I do next is just Control E to merge her onto that layer. And there she is. Now, the only tool that we need to use for this whole animation is right here. It is the keyframe tool. So once you click that, make sure that you're on the frame that you want to start with, and also have an idea of a start and finish of how you want your character item to move. So for me, I wanted her to stay in this generalized area over here on this cloud, and I just wanted her to do a soft up and down float in this area right here. So once you click on the keyframe, all you'll need to do is make sure that when you're doing it, you're in the linear version. That's the version that I use. There's a smooth one and there's a hold one, but we're not going to get into what those two do. Right now our focus is linear, which basically is just, you're just focusing on just a simple, just movement, straightforward movement. So once it's in linear, make sure that is clicked, and you're going to go over here to the operation tool, and you're going to make sure it's on the object function. All right, so now that you have your object tool, all you need to do is click on the item that you want to move, which in my case is my avatar. And I wanted to start her right about down here. And once I do that, you will see a green circle, or it might be a different color for you in your clipstudiopaint setup. But you'll see a circle pop right here, and that just lets you know that you set a keyframe. Now, because I was going for a floating type of animation, if I added a keyframe here and moved her all the way up here, and then it's set, and then on the second time I move it all the way down here, it's going to go really fast, like this. And that's not what we're looking for. So I'm just going to Control Z those keyframes, and she's going to start back where I had her. So to get that floating movement that I did, I separated her keyframes out a little bit. So instead of doing it per second, I went and did it like every 2 seconds. So on that 3rd second, I would move her up about here. And then I repeated that process all the way down until I got to the 12th second. So I added one at 91 frames. Then I'm going to go down to the 6th second and bring her down again. Then go to the 9th second and bring her back up. Then to the 12th second and bring her back down. And then when you hit play, she has a nice floating animation. And of course, flow with whatever you need. For me, I personally just needed her to float, so I just needed a couple of keyframes for this to work. Now on to my doggo. We are going to repeat the same process with each asset. they are going to be in their own animation folder. So with that, come back down here, add another folder, come back down here, add another keyframe, come back over here to the layer, right click, create, and insert the layer into a folder. And I'm going to bring over my doggo and copy and paste him right in this area. All right, and again, I'm going to copy and paste my doggo right over here on this side of the screen. And then I Control E to merge it onto the animation cell. And as you saw, I had my doggo start off of screen and had him float into screen. Now that he's over here, I do the same as I did with my avatar. I go here and click on the keyframe button, make sure it's in linear, and I grabbed him and I dragged him all the way off screen because I had him floating in to frame once my animation started. And now that he's out of frame, I went out a little further to about, let's say 3. And all I did was grab him again and I brought him all the way up, floating up into the scene. And then after that, I pretty much used the same method as I did for my avatar. So to have him floating, I would skip 2 seconds. So on the 6th second, I would have him come down a little bit. Then on the 9th second, I have him float up. And then on the 12th second, have him float down. And then this is what it looks like as it plays. He comes floating up, and then he starts to have that nice subtle bounce over here in his own space. And now I'm going to show you how I added my loading bar. So same thing, we're going to go to the beginning, and I'm going to add another animation folder, and I'm going to add another animation cell. Over here, right click, create folder, insert layer, then go to the animation cell and copy and paste my bar. Now here we go. For the bar, because the bar is at the top and we need it to be behind the tablet, all I need to do is click over here to this folder, and I just need to place this animation folder right behind my tablet, and boom, it's right there set up behind the tablet, and it's also set up behind this bar because once it moves, we don't need to see what's going on in the background, but we'll animate later. So once that's set up, we do the same thing. And how I was able to hide this was simply by drawing these clouds. I didn't want the bar to show on the side, so I was like, okay, I need some clouds to kind of hide the magic of this bar moving in to make it look like it's a loading bar. So with that, now that my loading bar is perfectly set to where it needs to be, just making sure that everything is locked, of course, I just need to go and do the same thing. So click on the keyframe and make sure it's in linear. Then I grab the bar and I bring it back, and I make sure that the bar does not show anywhere behind the cloud. So making sure that it stays perfectly aligned behind the cloud. So I start its keyframe right here to about where it loads. And this is also where you'll see that pink box come in, because at least from the starting of the load, you won't see anything that's happening in the background. So once I did that, as simple as it is, I went all the way down to the 12th second, right over here, and I just pulled this bar all the way over until it was towards its end, which is about right here. And then once you go to the beginning, this is how it plays. And you have a moving loading bar. Now, last but not least, I added moving clouds to the background of my intro. And to do that, I needed to find a cloud-like pattern. At the time, I wanted something simple, nothing too detailed like the ones I've drawn here. So I simply just went and searched up cloud pattern. For free. Something simple. And from there, you can pick whatever element that you were looking for. And the one that caught my eye was this cloud pattern here by Starry Chew. And it was cloud pattern 1 through 2 that she has here, these purple clouds here. So once I downloaded that, I moved it into my canvas. Now that I had the cloud pattern moved into my canvas, it was as simple as dragging the clouds onto the canvas itself. Now, just like with the loading bar, I wanted to make sure that it was placed properly behind and around certain things. So I would want my animation folder for this to go above the gradient and underneath everything else. So with this, because they're so small, you kind of have to back up a little bit, and I kind of widen them to be as wide as I need them to. So about this size works. And then you kind of just move it around like this. And what's cool about Clip Studio Paint patterns is that they're kind of like endless. They'll just keep cycling out over and over again like that. So instead of making your own pattern, it's just simple enough as just downloading your own free or paid with Clippy points a pattern for you to use for your projects. So with this was exactly what I was looking for. Now with this, just like everything else, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to go to the first frame. We're going to add a new folder, add an animation folder within that. And then we're going to put this cell into its own folder. Then we're going to copy and paste the clouds and paste the clouds within that folder. Now, when you're using a pattern, if you merge it onto, if you merge it onto a new layer, then all you'll get is everything cut off. So if you're going to use a pattern to animate for any animation, whether you're just using keyframes or anything of that sort, make sure that you do not merge it onto a new layer, because once you do that, it cuts off the rest of your pattern. So we're going to Control Z on that. So as you can see over here in this area, the pattern is on its own. We do not want to merge the pattern onto a cell or onto a layer, because once you do that, you'll lose that effect of having like infinity in your pattern. And that's what you want when you have a repeating looking background. So same thing as all the other assets in here. I want to click on my clouds, and I want to have a good starting point. So I would like some clouds to be shown about here as soon as it starts. So we're going to make it a keyframe, make sure it's linear, and then we're going to have it start about here. And then because it's kind of like an infinity cloud, all I need to do is just go to the 12th second, and I want it to be very slow, not too fast. So by the time it hits the 12th second, I would like the clouds to go down in this general direction, a little bit off screen. And now, once that is played, you have a nice soft movement of clouds in the background. And with that, you can have clouds go up and do like a triangle effect. But for me, I just wanted a nice little subtle cloud movement in the background. And you see a lot of artists do that if they just want to make the background look cool, like they, you know, or whatever, they'll just add like a simple movement to the background that kind of speaks for itself and works on its own. Now, of course, the last thing I added was just text in this area. So all I did was I went to my text section and then I added text. And there we go. Once I had the text that I wanted, which in my case was Maya's canvas loading, I put it where I wanted it to be. And there we are. You have a nice, simple intro animation that can also be used for an outro. These skills and these tools can be used for pretty much anything. If you're looking to do something simple, or if you're wanting to use it for a more in-depth animation, keyframes are just super cool to use, and you don't have to have multiple drawn frames to have a nice, you know, animation. And it's cool to see that a lot of artists out there are utilizing the keyframe tool for all types of things. It's a super fun thing to have when you're still a beginner in the animation space. All right, loves, last but not least, after you're satisfied with how your animation plays out, I'll show you how to export your animation in Clip Studio Paint. So all you would need to do is go up here to File, then you're going to go to Export Animation. Now for mine, I just simply exported it as a movie. And once you name your file, as I'm calling this test, you'll hit save, and it should automatically set it to 1920 by 1080 if you're doing the YouTube opening platform size, and then the frame rate. So for mine, I did mine at 24, so all I do is set it down to 24 frames per second and then hit OK. And then this bar will pop up and your animation will be rendered into the folder that you set it to. And with that, loves, that's how you can make a simple YouTube animation intro using Clip Studio Paint and keyframes. I hope this tutorial is helpful for you. It was super fun to make, and this only really took me about 3 days to do, but really majority of the time spent was just planning what I wanted to make and how I wanted it to look, and also just the rendering part. The animation itself took me about 30 minutes. Once I had all of my layers complete, it was just as simple as getting the movement together. So this is definitely something that you can do within a day if you have your idea or already have some drawn assets that you could use, and you'll be ready to go to amplify your channel or use this skill set for anything that you need it for. This is my first tutorial, so let me know what you guys think, and if there are any other tutorials that you would like to see, please comment them below. Thank you guys very much for hanging out with me. I pray that you guys have a blessed day and night, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.